Network files and commands. There are many network files and commands that needs to be used in order to configure your machine and bring it online or bring it to the network so it could communicate from one machine to another. It should have an interface detection. Assigning an IP address to the system is very important when you bring up a system and you need to have it on the network. The interface configuration files are, the first one is etcnsswitch.conf file. This file is located in every Linux distribution. In fact, all these files that I'm going to talk about, all of them are and will be in your Linux system. So the first one is nsswitch.conf, which tells the system where it should resolve its host name to IP address. So let's look at our Linux machine, and then we will find out how to read these files. Let's clear the screen. Okay, the first file that we're going to look at, it's etcnsswitch. So just do cat on etcnsswitch.conf file. You will see it's starting with host. So let's do more on it instead of just cat. So this will read the file page by page. Okay, so all these stuff, anything that starts with pound, it means it's just a comment. Anything that you want to have it in effect, just remove the comment. So let's go through it. Let's go to the point where we don't see the comments. So here it's starting from this page on. It says the password file. So the first thing is telling you to look for the password file in the files. Don't go anywhere. There's no Active Directory. There's no other NIS service that's running that's going to give you the password. So look for etc passwords. Shadow is also etc shadow. That's local. Group is also etc group. And when you come down to host right here, it's going to tell you the host information of your system is located in the files, and that is etc host. And then it's going to say if you can't find it, then go to DNS. DNS is another service that is installed on a Linux machine, or it could be installed in a Windows machine. We'll cover that later on, but for now, this is the nsswitch file looks like. And if you want your host to be resolved with DNS first, you switch DNS here to here, and file comes the second. So this is the nsswitch file. You're going to be seeing this configuration of this file many times while you're doing system administration. Next one we're going to look at is etc host. etc host file is where you define your system IP address and system host name. So if my system IP address is ifconfig, it's 192.168.1.14, I could go into that etc file by becoming root, vi the file, and I could go at the bottom and I could put 192.168.1.14, and the host name of my machine is oh god, let me save it, and there you go, My First Linux OS. So let's do it again. It doesn't matter uppercase or lowercase, but My First Linux OS. My First Linux OS. So now if you ping My First Linux OS, it's gonna ping your IP address. You see right here, the one that you specified in the etc file. So that's what etc file does. It's a very tiny version of DNS that's sitting in your machine. The next one we have etc sysconfig network file. This file, sorry, it's network, I believe. No, network probably. Yep, I'm right. So this is the file where you specify your host name as well. Right now it's empty because we have hard coded the host name, but if you want to change it, you could modify it here, and certain other parameters can be set too. Of course, you are more than welcome to look it up more on the network file. The next file that we're going to be covering is actually the file that's where you specify your IP address on all the network, all the subnet mask and gateway. And when you are in the directory etc sysconfig network scripts, I want you to do ls-ltr, and the last file you're going to see is ifg enp0s3. And what is this, the last one? It's actually your interface. If you go ifconfig, and you'll see right here, this is the name of your interface. So remember, every time all those interfaces files always start with if cfg dash and the interface name. So when you vi that file, here you'll see the boot proto is defined as DHCP. You could change that here as static, and then you could define the IP address, you could define subnet mask, gateway, and this way your IP address becomes permanent in your machine and does not change. So these are a few of the files that I really want you to understand and memorize it, because if you are going to go into Linux jobs and you're going to be applying for it, oftentimes you're going to get questions on these, where these files are, what the files do, where they're located, and so on. So let's exit out of this file. The last file I have is etcresolve.conf. etcresolve.conf specifies your DNS server. DNS server is, once again, it actually resolve hostname to IP, IP to hostname, and hostname to hostname. So if you define it here, every time you go to www.google.com and hit enter, it knows Google is, I have to go into, this is my gateway, I have to go to my gateway, which is right now acting as a DNS server. I'm going to go to my DNS server and ask, where is Google, and how to translate Google to IP address. And it has translated, and this is the IP address of Google. Let's go back to our lesson. The next one, we have the network commands. The network commands, we have learned ping already. If you wanted to ping a server, let's say ping www.hotmail.com, that's a server outside. That command that you will run is ping. Ifconfig tells you what your interfaces are in the system. We have right now 3 interfaces. The local one is not count as an interface, and the other one you could ignore it. The only one that I have is just one, and this is right there, and it's telling me my IP is configured this. Then you have if up or if down. If you want to bring down this interface, if you don't want a network, you could type if up, if down, or if you want to bring it back up, you type if up. Then the next one, we have netstat. Netstat you could run with different options. I run is usually with RNB. This one tells you your gateway, how your traffic is flowing, from which interfaces is flowing from. And the last one we're going to cover is TCP dump. TCP dump, it actually traces every single transactions that are leaving your machine and coming into your machine. To the command to run is simply TCP dump. You have to specify I with the interface, which interface you are sniffing. It's basically a sniffing tool, and then you run it, and you'll see every listening coming in, going out. It's actually listed here. So that's how you actually run this TCP command. That's how you run all these commands, and please memorize it. Please run a man command on each and every one of them, and familiarize yourself how these network commands and files work.